Welcome back to the Time for Heroes podcast. Right. On the podcast today, I have Matt McManamon. Matt has an album out, Scally Folk, released 2 years ago. Before that, he was the frontman in the Dead 60's, and he's also toured with the Specials. So we're going to talk about Matt's career right from the start and what's going on now and what's coming up in the future. So firstly, Matt, thanks for coming on. And what I do at the start of the podcast, I like to find out what life was like for my guests growing up. So what was life like for a young Matt McManamon?
Yeah, so I mean, I was born and bred in Liverpool, as I'm sure you can probably tell by my accent. Born into an Irish family, and kind of growing up from quite an early age, I got interested in music. Kind of largely down to I've got three older brothers, so they're musical. They were into listening to music and stuff. They didn't really play a whole lot of music as in instruments and stuff like that. They all had a little bit of a go, but they were all definitely into they were like kind of big music fans, listening to records and tapes as well. It was back then, so I was always kind of exposed to music in that kind of way. And then also, my mother, she was really into kind of listening to like traditional Irish music and,
Right.
even like rebel songs and stuff like that. And she always had that kind of blasting out of the kitchen whenever she was like cooking or, like doing her daily chores, that kind of way. So I guess that was my first kind of introduction to music, was just picking up on what my older brothers and my mother was listening to, really. And then, quite quickly I started getting into, I suppose it'd be like sort of chart music and stuff like that, whatever was current at the time, nothing cool at all.
Yeah.
But I always remember I was allowed to kind of quite a young age with me kind of bit of pocket money go out and buy a record or a tape. It was then a cassette tape, and I used to go down to the local record shop or Woolworths. I remember, I think that's gone now, Woolworths, but I used to go in there and get like a cassette single for like 99 pence or whatever. And then, as I got a little bit older, went to sort of, secondary school or whatever, that was when I really decided this is my call and this is what I want to do. I want to be a musician. I want to be a singer. I want to play the guitar. I want to write songs. I want to kind of, be an entertainer and be on the stage sort of thing. And it was around that age, around sort of 11, 12, I'd say, was when I really kind of got it into my mind. I'm going to become a musician. That's what I want to do. This is my calling. I felt it was like a vocation for me. And then just try to just, immerse myself in music. And I was learning to play the guitar at that stage, really started taking it seriously. Whenever most of the kids kind of in my neighborhood would have been out playing football or even playing some, of the early kind of, well, there wasn't PlayStations or anything like that back then, but, they might have like a Nintendo or something like that, playing video games or whatever. And they'd be doing that kind of stuff. And I would just be in my bedroom, just learning to play the guitar, just, trying to learn the chords, trying to play songs, mainly Beatles songs and stuff like that, because obviously being from Liverpool, the Beatles would always be, they're never too far away from, someone who's into music. And then, so as I kind of progressed and got a bit better and stuff like that, I was around 14 when I basically kind of formed my first band. And to use a sort of an Americanism, I always call it like my high school band, and then from then, that's when I started playing music and actually started to do some performances and playing gigs, and kind of just onwards and upwards, and just kind of kept going, and that was it. It was just music. I was hooked on it.
Do you think, obviously, you touched on it, obviously, with the Beatles and all that, growing up in a city like Liverpool, that's had right through for the Beatles. I mean, then into the 80s, you had the Farm, stuff like that. The 90s, you had Cast and Britpop. stuff like that. So you had musical influences right through. Was there any other influences like further afield for Liverpool?
Well, yeah, for me, I guess. I mean, you're dead right in what you're saying there. Kind of almost in Liverpool, there's so many good bands and so
I mean,
many good.
I'm missing out hundreds there. Obviously, I'm as I say, I'm waiting on a mouse getting delivered. I'm also waiting on Ian Brody's book getting delivered. So there's another
Uh,
one. You know what I mean? So, I so there, I mean, there's so many influences in Liverpool, but outside of there and further afield.
yeah, so like for me, I got into the Clash, which are obviously Joe Strummer and that's a London, we're a London band, I should say. When I first kind of discovered them, I became obsessed with them, and I love the way I was into punk anyway, and I'd started to kind of discover punk and discover bands and things like that. And then when I discovered the Clash, and especially the way they kind of fused like the ska and reggae and dub elements into their punk sound, that just kind of just blew my mind. And the Clash are kind of one of they are the main reason why I became aware of like Jamaican music and, like I said, like ska, reggae, and dub. So they were a huge influence, and I still love them to this day. Still listen to them regularly, and that. But yeah, that was kind of a bit of a game changer. And then, like you said, with the Liverpool stuff, combining all that with all the great Liverpool bands, you kind of had a lot of stuff to get your teeth into, type thing,
Mm-hmm. So the first band you started was this Rest Home.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, well done. You've done your homework there. Yeah, Rest Home. God, yeah, that was them. Yeah,
And then Rest Home turned into Pinhole. Is that
that's right.
now Pinhole? I mean, he's got a John Peel session
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Pinhole, so you were obviously kind of already quoted there. You got a John Peel session,
yeah.
you've done all right to start with. How did that come about?
Oh God, so long ago now. I mean, yeah, because like it's like Pinhole had started to kind of gain a bit of traction, if you like, and we were kind of starting to get noticed, and we were doing gigs, we were doing tours. We started to do a couple of small tours of the UK. We were getting bits and bobs on the radio, and I can't remember exactly how they came about, but we did at the time. We had a guy who was managing us. A guy called Shifty, his name was, funnily enough. Well, that was his nickname. His real name, and he set up a little management company called Shifty Management, and I believe, if I remember rightly, God, like I said so long ago, he was just kind of touting us around, and it was kind of like old school. I think he was just sending like tapes and CDs and stuff to various people, various record labels or radio stations and things like that. And John Peel just picked up on it. It landed in his hand. He managed to have a listen to it, liked it, and sort of got his people to contact our people, type thing. And then we were invited in to do a John Peel session. And it was just it's funny because it's kind of quite a prestigious thing to do, and sometimes I forget that I even did that. Do you know what I mean? Because it was so long ago. But yeah, it's nice to kind of have that on the CV. It's a good box to tick, that one, that we've done a John Peel session.
I know a boy up here. I know a boy up here that was in a band, and he was the same. John Peel was big into them. They were the Aphrodisiacs. They were called. I don't think any of them are doing anything in music now, but you've always got that kind of
Yeah,
Peel thing. If John Peel likes you, you're doing something right in music. You know what I mean?
yeah. It's kind of a good sort of mark of respect, if you like, and yeah, like you said, you're doing something right when John Peel is into you.
So what happened then with the split? Because for what I can gather, you kind of split, and then a couple of months later, the Dead 60's kind of came about, and quickly you signed to Delta Sonic.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because towards the end of Pinhole, that band, we had kind of, because Pinhole was kind of like a bit of a pop punk band. Do you know what I mean? And it was kind of like an American sounding pop punk sort of thing we were trying to go for. And you got to remember, we were only teenagers when we were doing all that. So as we were kind of getting older and maturing and, you know, growing into men, if you like, you know, our taste started to sort of, the musical taste started to sort of change again. And just going back to the Clash, that was when I really, really started getting into the Clash and discovering all the Jamaican stuff and like ska and reggae. So that was creeping into the Pinhole sound. And we just felt that we'd kind of outgrown what we had been doing up until then. And we just kind of felt, you know, we were starting to introduce reggae sounds and ska sounds into the band. And we just thought, you know what, the best thing to do is kind of like just knock this on the head and kind of come out and re-emerge, sort of like rebrand it, if you like. Because it was the same members of the band, and we just said, let's come out and just kind of have a clean slate. We had this idea of going more, combining the punk with the reggae, the dub, the ska, and then we just basically said, like, let's kind of clear the decks, let's start again. And we had this idea to call the band the Dead 60's, and we said, right, let's do that. So we did that, and then we quite soon, you know, people started to take notice of us, and then it was really quick. We were only kind of a few months into doing that band when Delta Sonic and Alan Wills, who was the boss of Delta Sonic, he's passed away now, sadly. We came to his attention, and we had a few, you know, conversations with him. He came down to see us rehearse, and he just generally took an interest in us. And then he said, "Yeah, do you know what? I really like what you're doing. I like where I think you're going. I like, you know." He had a good idea of where he thought he could take us and help us, and all the rest of it. And he just offered us a record deal with Delta Sonic, and the rest is sort of history, as they say.
So obviously we touched on Liverpool, and through the years I've had all these scenes and all these kind of venues. So like in the 60's, you had the Beatles, and everybody was playing the Cavern Club. Obviously, going further forward, I've heard Ian Brodie talk about Eric's. And it was I kind of got the similarities with the Hacienda in Manchester with Eric's. Everybody seemed to be there. The Bandits had a club night called the Bandwagon. So around about this time, looking at the bands that were out around about you, the Zootons, the Bandits, obviously the Wombats, the Coral, the Little Flames, the Rascals, the Stands. Obviously the Rascals came for the Little Flames, but obviously that's a good list of bands that would be this new Liverpool scene, round about this bandwagon kind of club night sort of thing. So how did you see the Liverpool scene back then? Did you all get on?
Yeah, and I mean, all them bands you mentioned at that time, when we all kind of came out at roughly around the same time, it was just absolutely buzzing. There was so many good bands, and there was just so much music being created, and a big kind of scene, and you know, people were really kind of getting into it. But funny enough, for us, the Dead 60's, even though I knew all them bands and I'd hang out with them and I would go to the bandwagon, like you mentioned, I was good mates with the bandits, especially Gary Murphy, who was the guitarist. I was only with him not that long ago. He now works with a band called Inhaler. It was Bono's son, but I won't go off on one about that. but I went to see them play not long ago, and he was there. Anyhow, and all that bandwagon stuff. But us, although I would go as kind of like a music fan or whatever and hang out with them, us, the Dead 60's, as a band, we stayed away from Liverpool for ages, and we did that on purpose because we basically wanted to go and, if you like, kind of like earn our stripes sort of thing. So whenever we played, we kind of would go, you know, we'd go up to Scotland or, you know, all around the UK, basically anywhere and everywhere. And for a good 18 months, we just wouldn't play Liverpool, and we stayed away from it because we didn't want to sort of get lost in this kind of, you know, big sort of scene where it could potentially you could kind of get lost in it all. Do you know what I mean? And not be noticed as much.
Yeah.
And the other thing was we wanted to make sure when we did come back and play Liverpool, which is obviously our hometown, we wanted to make sure that we were absolutely spot on and we were like, you know, super tight, super good, and kind of, you know, sort of blow everyone out the water type thing was the plan.
Obviously, then going on tour with Dead 60's, you played gigs with Coral and the Zootons, obviously. Other bands, Kasabians, the Frills, the Music, Supergrass. So lots of kind of big name bands there as well. How was it kind of touring with these bands? And obviously you get quite a different sound, obviously, for like Kasabian, for instance, in the music. So how did that go, kind of touring with them?
All them tours were brilliant, yeah. And I mean, because whenever we went out on tour, it was just, you know, you're going out to play with these bands who have already kind of been successful or in the process of being successful. So we always wanted to tap into their fans, obviously, and try and bring them onto our kind of camp, you know. And it was just all them bands were just so kind to us. Everyone, they all liked us. They liked us as people. They liked our music. So it was just great just to have that opportunity to be exposed to other bands' fans, and we would find that a lot of them would get into us and they would come and support us, and you know, they would help us to kind of you know, develop as a band and develop our own fan base. So it was just brilliant. It was just so cool. And I mean, you talk about Supergrass there. Funny enough, I only recently supported Supergrass again on my own as a solo artist.
Right.
So it's kind of come full
Full
circle, you know. Yeah, which is great. Like,
do you think, obviously, the fans taking to you, it does seem like that the style of music, there's no many bands playing the kind of the ska kind of influenced music. The only other bands that I can think of around about that time would be maybe the Ordinary Boys and maybe the Rifles as well, which obviously the Rifles seem to have a big following as well. So do you think it is that because there's no many bands playing that style of music, he's kind of attract a bigger fan base?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely for us, because at the time when we kind of came out, nobody was doing that sound that we were doing. And like you mentioned there, the Ordinary Boys and the Rifles, they were two bands that we knew as well, and we had done some gigs together, some sporadic gigs. But even, I mean, nobody really sounded like us at all. And definitely the whole kind of, again, we'll talk about the Clash and going back to the Clash, combining that kind of punk and ska and reggae and Jamaican influence, I don't think it had really been done since the Clash. So we were like the first kind of modern bands, if you like, since then to do that. So I think, yeah, it did definitely, you know, kind of spike people's interests, because it was a sound that hadn't been heard for a long time, especially in, you know, early 2000s when we first kind of, you know, emerged and were starting to get noticed. It'd been such a long time since anybody had kind of combined that style of music that people did just go, wow, what is this? This is mad. Wow, you know, kind of thing. So, yeah, I think because it was quite an unusual thing to do, that's why we kind of got noticed.
Mm-hmm. The first album, the debut album, The Dead 60's, was recorded at Park Street Studios, which seems to be, when you look at the amount of albums that I've seen recorded at that studios, it seems to have a tremendous success rate. What was it like then recording the debut album?
Yeah, it was brilliant. And like Park Street actually, I believe it's closed down now, which is sad considering all the great bands that have been through there and done great stuff. But yeah, I mean, like recording the album was just brilliant. I mean, I remember it was quite hard work because it was the first ever album I'd ever done. So you don't really know what you're doing. I'd been in recording studios before, obviously doing, you know, singles or demos or whatever like that. But then to do a full LP of, you know, 12, 13, 14, 15 songs, whatever it is. And I think you end up recording about 20 odd songs and then, you know, whittling it down. It's exciting. And it's also quite daunting because, like I said, you don't really know what you're doing. But once you get into it, it's great. And it was an exciting time because once you start hearing sort of, once the album starts getting knocked into shape and you start hearing stuff back through the desk and you're hearing songs and you're thinking, oh yeah, this is sounding good. And then, you know, you kind of add the sort of the whistles and bells sort of thing. It's just like, it's a really exciting time to hear songs that you've written kind of come into fruition, if you like. And yeah, it was just a fabulous, magical time, really. It's brilliant.
It was released, am I right in saying, was it released in America before it was released in Britain?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
How did that come about? Were these kind of already kind of big over in America?
Yeah, well, basically what happened was that was the decision was made by the record company. We had started going out to America, touring out there, and all of a sudden it kind of blew up. We'd put out the single Riot Radio, and then American radio picked up on it, and it was, if I remember rightly, it was something like the third most added song on American radio.
Yeah, that's right, after White Stripes, and I can't mind who the other one was.
Yeah, I think it's like Coldplay or something.
Yeah,
like that. Coldplay and
yeah.
the White Stripes. So we were doing really well out there, and we were starting to get a lot of, a lot of notice. We're doing gigs, quite big gigs, bigger gigs than we were doing in the UK, and they were kind of saying, you know, you're doing really well out here. You've got to kind of stay on it while you're hot, type thing. So they made the decision to release the album earlier in America before it was in the UK or Europe. And as well, we had American management. The guys that managed us were based in New York. They were like quite a big management company, so they were keen to keep us in America anyway. So yeah, it was kind of like milk it while it's hot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So obviously the album's come out, the album's going well, and due to play Glastonbury, and then it's hit with a lightning strike. How gutting was that?
Yeah, I mean it was a tough one really, because you know Glastonbury's Glastonbury. Everybody knows about Glastonbury, and as an artist, it's a festival that you really really want to go and play. And yeah, like you know, we were asked to come, invited to go and play it, and like you said dead right there, that like we were meant to go on and lightning hit the stage, and we got cancelled. So that, yeah, it was absolutely gutting. But we ended up doing a kind of sporadic, slightly secret acoustic set in one of the tents. I can't remember what tent it was now, and because we couldn't do the full band show, we ended up doing this acoustic set, which was brilliant. Actually, it was really really good, and the place was absolutely packed. So although we didn't get to do the full show that we wanted to do on the other stage, we were due to play. Although we didn't get to do that, we still did get to play it, but albeit in a smaller stage in a tent. But what can you do? That's the way it is. When the health and safety shut down the stage, there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And I remember it quite well, actually. The weather was absolutely atrocious. I remember the rain coming down, and I know like Glastonbury is often famed for being it's often muddy and stuff like that. But honest to God, it was just it was like being in the trenches or something. Do you know what I mean?
And you see people seem to have a good time at things like that, but it's no for me. I hate it. I mean, I went to Tea in the Park 10 years in a row at least, and when the weather was good, it was amazing. But see if you get a bit of rain and it gets all muddy, man, it freaked me out. I wasn't interested.
Yeah.
These campsites are atrocious.
Yeah, I know. I prefer the kind of the comfort of a nice dressing room or a tour bus or whatever, rather than rolling around in the mud or whatever.
Yeah. The second album, then you went to New York to record. Obviously, I was kind of surprised at that. But then, if you're saying you had American management, was that kind of the reasons behind that?
Yeah, that was one of the reasons, and the other reason was the guy that produced the album, a guy called David Kahn. His name is. He was American as well. He's from New York. So when it was decided that he was going to produce the record, he was kind of like, well, look, I've got. He had his own studio in New York, and he was like, well, come over to my studio and do it. So we were just like, yeah, okay, yeah. It was like, what was like? You got two options. It's like come to New York and record, or hang around Liverpool. It was like, oh, I think I'll go to New York.
And what sort of differences did you notice for recording the debut album to recording the second album?
Well, obviously, the second one was done with this guy David Kahn, who was a well-known producer. He'd done quite a lot of big acts. And I remember he just before he did our album, he'd just finished doing Paul McCartney's album.
Right.
So they're the kind of like the names escape me now. Some of the people that he's done big people. So working with someone like him was just it was completely different because I guess it's like a bit of a different approach. And like I touched on earlier, saying when we've done the first album, you don't really know what you're doing, and it's all a bit like kind of trial and error sort of thing, and you're kind of feeling your way around. On the second album, I was working with this producer, and it's much more kind of structured. And this guy had worked with many other artists, so like he knew exactly what he was doing, and he knew the way he wanted to do it. He had some really good ideas on how he wanted to produce us and what he thought should happen and what shouldn't happen. So it was. It was easier in that way, but I must admit, I remember it was hard in the sense that this guy, lovely guy, brilliant producer, had a great time with him. He'd have you in it, kind of like 10 in the morning, and you'd go till sort of like 2 or 3 in the morning every day,
Right.
and it was, and we were there for 3.5 months doing that, and we didn't have any days off. So it was like, he
That's
worked
the
us
thing
hard.
when I speak to bands, obviously they all tell me about how their albums were produced or whatever, and all these producers all work differently. Some have them in during the night, some like to do kind of normal 9 to 5 type stuff. So you don't
Yeah.
really know what you're getting until you're in there. And
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, you just don't know what you get, so it's a bit of a kind of a bit of a lottery sort of thing. When yeah, for this, and this guy just wanted to work, which is great, but I wouldn't do it now. I mean, when I record now, although I do still do long days when I need to, but I kind of find that sort of the 9 to 5 thing is better for me because you just seem to be able to just get more work done in a way because you're not completely shattered or falling asleep in the middle of the night trying to put down a guitar
yeah,
part or whatever.
I guess it all kind of has to work to your kind of lifestyle, and obviously yourself, you're a parent, you've got kids, haven't you? So you
Yeah,
can't be sitting up all night just tinkering
yeah,
with guitar. You get other commitments as well.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly, yeah.
the second album, I didn't see did the second album no chart?
Well, yeah, with the second album, it was only partially released,
Right.
um, and it was released in France and Germany and Japan. And it was the reason, basically leading up to that being released, the reason it was only partially released, it didn't get the full thing, was because basically the record company dropped us. We had released one single, a song called "Stand Up," which was the only single to be released off that album,
Mm-hmm.
and it was our worst ever charting single. It barely scraped the top 50. So when that happened, the record company were just like, they basically pulled the plug and dropped us. So we didn't get to release the second album properly, but we still had like a record deal in Europe and Japan, so they put it out. And but then quite soon after that, we decided to call it a day. We split up the band. But yeah, it was a shame that.
Obviously, around about this time, you get guitar bands with 10 a penny, and there must have been so much competition. So, as you're saying,
Yeah,
like, one single doesn't go well, and That's usually under pressure, and
Yeah.
somebody else ready to just come in and take your place.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened, and especially at that time, and that was around 2008, and that kind of time, there was so many bands and so many bands that were, you know, they were selling like 500,000 records or whatever, do you know,
Yeah.
even a million, stuff like that, and we weren't quite up to that standard. I mean, we sold 100,000 records, which is really great, and I'm really proud of that. But because when you kind of not, when there's other bands selling double, triple them kind of numbers, they're not interested in 100,000. The 100,000 seems to be almost like you're an underachiever or something. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess there's just too many bands doing bigger and better stuff. When we didn't chart as high as we should have done, we just got the chop basically, which is it's pretty cutthroat, but I can sort of look back and kind of laugh at it, or maybe not laugh at it, but I can kind of understand it now. And it's, at the time it was heartbreaking, and you're pretty devastated, but without trying to sound like a cliche, that's showbiz. You know what I mean? And it's like the cruel world that we got ourselves into. So you just got to you've got to take it on the chin and take the rough with the smooth sort of thing.
So, I mean, these things seem to kind of work out in the end, don't they? I'm looking at Andy Nicholson for Arctic Monkeys. Obviously, he kind of get whatever way you want to look at it. He was either kicked out or he left his own accord.
Yeah.
But if you look at him now, he's doing his own music and he seems happy doing that. So sometimes through the course of time, things like this work out better for you. You might just not see it at the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, before the band split up, you played a Fred Perry gig where Terry Hall came in and played with you. So how was that playing alongside him for the first time?
Yeah, that was amazing, because I mean, I think it's kind of anybody who knows me or is aware of the band or my kind of musical career will know that the Specials were a big influence. So when we got invited to do that Fred Perry thing, because us and Terry Hall were both connected to Fred Perry, they invited us to do this gig, and Don Letts was DJing at that as well, which that was another kind of big thrill to kind of meet him, because he's obviously a legend. So getting asked to do that was really cool. And at the time, Terry hadn't done really he certainly hadn't done any special songs for a long time, and he said, why don't I jump up with you and do the encore, and we'll do a couple of specials songs. So that was like amazing. and that was where my connection first kind of came with Terry. And then we'd see each other sort of, sporadically at sort of, various music events and stuff like that. But, that was where the connection was made. And then kind of fast forward a few years later down the line, and I was approached by Terry to come and play with the Specials. So that was just crazy.
As well as that, just before you split as well, a couple of months before you split, you get asked to design a couple of jackets. I don't know if you asked, did you design them or kind of just put your name to them there?
That came about with a conversation that I had with a guy called James Daly, who was he's like kind of one of the guys who works at Fred Perry. I'm still friends with him. I still speak to him regularly, and there's a store, a Fred Perry shop, like in London, in Carnaby Street. Well, it's not actually on Carnaby Street. It's like kind of behind Carnaby Street. And we were asked to open the store. They were doing an opening, like a grand opening, and they said, "Will you come along and play in the shop?" So we said, "Yeah." We were all fans of the clothes and all the rest of it, and we were actually had they used to give us we had like an endorsement deal with Fred Perry, where basically they just gave us free clothes, which was nice.
I'm looking for one of them for my podcast.
Yeah, they still send me a few bits from time to time now, not as much as they once used to, though. You know, but sorry. Yeah. So we got asked to do that, and I was having the conversation after the gig with James from Fred Perry, and it was kind of an off the cuff remark, and I just said to him, "Do you know what you should do? You should design a reversible Harrington jacket where the tartan is on the outside."
Mm-hmm.
And a bit like the way the old punks and skinheads used to do it back in the day, but I'm too young to remember the original, you know, punks and skinheads. But apparently that's what they did in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
They would turn them inside out as like a fashion statement or whatever. And I said, I reckon that looks really cool. You should, have you ever done one? And they said, no, we've never done anything like that. I was like, all right, okay, you should. And he was like, all right, cool. And, you know, that conversation kind of ended like that. Didn't really think anything much of it. And then I don't know, maybe about 5 or 6 months later, I get the call from him. He said, "Do you remember that idea you had about the reversible Fred Perry Harrington jackets?" I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Do you want to like design one? And you know, we can do it like as a Dead 60's kind of you know, joint venture type thing where we put your name on something." I was like, "Yeah, sound." So even though I didn't design the Harrington jacket because that was already the design was already there template, but I got to go into the Fred Perry kind of design offices and sit down with the designer and talk about what we wanted to do, and got to pick which tartans that we wanted, and we did two, which is one's the traditional red one, like a bit like that. I've got it on there, which is if I remember rightly, it's called a Stuart tartan.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said, let's pick another one, and I wanted to do it's kind of like a black one, which is a Cornish tartan. It's called. So yeah, we just got to sit down and do that with them, and we put out 500 of each, and they all had like a hand sewn neck label that was not numbered, and it had our band logo, the Dead 60's. And yeah, we did 500 of each of them, and they all sold out. I've still got the two number ones, because it was like my idea. They let me have the number ones, so I've got the red and the black one, with all the labels still on, and I've still kept them. Yeah.
Brilliant. So when the band split, then a couple of months later, what was the plans then? What did you have any plans? Did you?
No. To be honest with you, I mean, when the band split, I mean, I know me, I sort of quite soon after that, I moved to Ireland, where I live now, and where I'm talking to you from today. So I kind of came back to the motherland type thing, and I kind of came to Ireland to sort of like, you know, a bit battered and bruised, if you like, from my from my experiences in the music industry, and I sort of came to Ireland to lick my wounds, and I didn't do a whole lot of music for a while, just kind of didn't feel up to it, sort of thing. I wasn't kind of like mentally or, you know, emotionally or spiritually kind of didn't feel I was up to it. After, you know, getting dropped, and sort of felt like you'd kind of been like kind of chewed up and spat out a little bit.
Yeah.
So I didn't do a whole lot for a while. And I never gave up, but I just wasn't doing it like professionally, if you like, and it wasn't really leaving it wasn't any music I was doing all right, and it wasn't kind of leaving the bedroom sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't kind of letting anyone in on it or hear it. But then I got in on the DJ scene then, funnily enough, in Dublin, and I DJ'd for quite a few years.
Right.
Mainly doing like ska and reggae nights, which was cool. Do you know?
Yeah.
So that was
I mean,
kind of how I was.
these nights, there's so many of them over here, my area.
Yeah.
So I'd imagine they're big all over. They're sort of the ska, the mod, Northern Soul, that stuff is really big.
Yeah. There's still a good few that go on. I mean, I don't do them anymore. I haven't done them for years, but that's kind of what I did as a well, as a living, I suppose, because I wasn't doing any like proper playing with bands or doing performances or anything like that. So I chipped away at doing that, and then behind the scenes, I always had, you know, I always had this desire to do a solo album and still do music, but I just wasn't quite in the right place to kind of get it all going and get the wheels in motion. But it was always there in the back of my mind, and I was always kind of like trying to make plans and sort of, you know, like kind of scheming. I was kind of scheming in the back of my mind, but in some ways, I didn't have the confidence either to do it. I did find that my confidence was hit quite hard after being dropped. It's almost a bit like, getting divorced or something like that. You know, when you,
Yeah.
and it just kind of just knocks you. So I was kind of, you know, sort of wanting to do stuff, but not quite finding it in myself to be able to do it. But then anyway, so I kept kind of, you know, as a couple of years went by, and then all of a sudden I get a call out the blue. If it was from a guy called Steve Blackwell, who he was the manager at the Specials, and he rings me up and he says, "Oh, Terry asked me to give you a call." And I was like, "All right, yeah." And he said, "Would you be interested in joining?" I was like, "Yeah, okay." You know, it's not every day though. Like, I remember that day, like at the time, I was like, I was in my mum's house, and you know, I was like watching, you know, Bargain Hunt or something on telly. You know, like having absolutely nothing to do. I'm feeling a bit sorry for myself. And then all of a sudden, I get a call saying that it was Roddy, the original guitarist. He said he's left the group, and we need a guitarist to come and fill in. Would you be interested in doing it? Can you come and do it? What's your thoughts? And I was like, yeah. Well, at first I was a bit like, is this a wind up or what? And then it was like, no, I can assure you, it's not a wind up. Terry's asked me to ring you, blah, blah, blah. You know, he obviously knows you from the Dead 60's days and doing the Fred Perry stuff and this and that. He said, if you're up for it, we'd like you to come. And I said, okay, yeah. This was like on the Friday. And he said, can you come to London on Monday? And I was like, yeah, okay. So they booked me a flight and I went to London, met them all. We just had a bit of a meeting. And they were like, yeah, cool. If you're up for it, we'd like you to come and join. And I was like, cool. And then he said, right, so the first gig is like next month. I was like, okay. I said, where are we playing? He's like, oh, the Isle of Wight Festival. I was like, right. And they were like, we're second to top on the main stage. So it was the Red Hot Chili Peppers headlining and the Specials on before them. So I was like, okay, right. So bear in mind, I hadn't been on stage or played with a group, like a band, but it was around 4 years. So I was like, right, I'm a little bit kind of rusty here. And they throw me into like the Isle of Wight Festival playing to 50, 60,000 people. in playing lead guitar for the Specials, and it was like, and I had to learn all the songs. Although I knew the songs to listen to as a fan, I still had to learn how to play them. Which, you know, that was it was fun. It was really fun, but quite daunting. And then, you know, I'm glad to report that the gig went great, and then I stayed with them for around 18 months. Then, and we did a lot, mainly festivals, and then. But I did get to do the South American tour with them, where we're doing like Mexico and Chile, and they were doing like big festivals out there and a couple of their own kind of like club shows and things like that in Mexico. So yeah, it was like
I can think of worse places to be. Did your missus get to go, or was she stuck back in Ireland?
Oh no, yes, she was stuck in Ireland. Yeah.
Oh, I bet she was raging with you. So 18 months with the Specials, and then what was it after that? Did that kind of reinvigorate you?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because like I said, I was kind of, my confidence wasn't really, you know, it was kind of at a bit of a low. But then getting to play with them and the way it worked out, and it worked out well, it totally kind of just reboosted me, and the confidence came back. And then it was, you know, it was kind of the the kick up the backside that I needed. You know, I just needed that, and I'm ever so grateful that I managed to get that opportunity. Not only did I get to play with like one of my most, you know, kind of favorite bands, an iconic band, it also, which is obviously that, I mean, that's a dream come true. But then, yeah, it also kickstarted my confidence and essentially kickstarted my solo career, because that's quite soon after my time finishing up playing with them, that's when I really kind of threw myself into doing the solo stuff and getting the solo record out, and I kind of more or less haven't really looked back since then.
Yeah. I was listening to. I had the album on yesterday. We've been decorating the house. We've been doing the hall here the last couple of weeks after Christmas. So I had that on the speaker, and my missus, she's no really big into music. She's like she likes her 80s films and all that. So she'd be happy listening to Dirty Dancing soundtrack or something. She says, "What was that? What was that you had done earlier?" I said, "That's boy Matt McManamon. I got him in the podcast." And she, "It's really good, isn't it? It's really easy to get into." Did toe tapping. She kind of likened it a bit to Jerry Cinnamon, which
Okay,
I did see the first song, Gaslight, and it's got that kind of Jerry Cinnamon vibe. I've not had it at my head the last 2 or 3 days, man. It's a cracker.
That's always nice to hear that.
Yeah. So obviously, what's been happening? Where have you been gigging then with this stuff? It seems to be you've been all over the place.
Yeah, well, I mean, recently I just came back just before Christmas. I was away in Japan. I was touring in Japan
with Leon, with
Leon, with Jack, aka Leon, who I know you've had on the podcast, who's a good mate of mine. We were out in Japan. We'd done a tour out there, and then basically, then I got back from Japan and I went straight onto the Holly Johnson tour, which I'm sure most people who listen to this will know. Holly Johnson was the lead singer in Frankie Goes to Hollywood, another iconic, famous Liverpool band, and he's kind of like he's been like a kind of celebrity fan of mine ever since I put Scally Folk out, and he bought the record, bought the T-shirt, bought everything, and on his social media he'd be tweeting and stuff like that, like saying how much he loved the album and this kind of stuff. And then when he announced his tour dates, he basically just contacted me and just said, "Listen, I'm going out on tour doing this." It was 30 years? Yeah, 30 years anniversary of Relax. And he said, "Would you like to come along and be the support act and open up for me?" And I said, "Yeah, sound." So I was doing that. So that finished just before Christmas. And then now I'm actually got my first gig next week of this year, this new year, this 2024. And I'm just keep gigging basically anywhere and everywhere that'll have me at the minute.
Where does the friendship with Jack come from? How do you know him?
So I met Jack. We're probably going on about 5 or 6 years ago now. I was invited to play the Shine On Festival.
That's what I thought.
Which they have every year in Butlins in Minehead, and I know the people who run it, like the MDs of it. There's two guys. One's from Newcastle originally, but he lives in Liverpool, and the other guy is a proper Scouser from Liverpool.
Yeah, Everton fan, isn't he?
Big Everton fan, yeah. So
my pal Stevie Moffat, he's DJ'd down there the last 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Super Cool Indie Night, it's called. Him and his boy. So I'd messaged him. He's like a good pal of mine up here, and I go to gigs with him. Big supporter of the podcast. So I'd messaged him and gave him a list of who I had coming up, and he was super excited to see your name. And I thought that must be where it comes from, the Shine On. I thought he must know Shine On. And then when I seen the gigs with Leon, I thought there's definitely a Shine connection there.
Yeah, because that's where I very first met him, and he'd only just started doing his kind of spoken word. I don't even think he'd done any gigs or anything at that point. He may have done a couple of open mic nights, but he was very kind of early days into his career. We basically kind of met at the bar. as all good friendships usually start at the bar. And he knew who I was from the Dead 60's days and blah, blah, blah. And we got talking and he said, I'm a poet. I do this kind of spoken word stuff. And I must admit, at first, I was a bit like, oh, yeah, whatever type thing. I didn't really take him seriously. Because, you know, you kind of just, and I regret kind of not taking him seriously at first. I was a bit like, oh, yeah, whatever, mate, whatever sort of thing. You know, I'm trying to get drunk here. Do you know what I mean? Leave me alone. And then I remember then I said to him, all right, then go on. If you're a poet, I said, do something for me now. And he did. And he rattled off something. It floored me. I was like, oh my God, this is absolutely amazing. So we subsequently spent the whole night together, you know, chatting about music, poetry, going back and forth, this and that. And I was just like, listen, I said, genuinely and sincerely, I think you're really, really good. We should do something together, collaborate, do a gig, whatever. I don't know what's going to happen, but somewhere down the line. And then kind of, it was a couple, probably a year or two later then when we finally ended up we did a gig in Liverpool, and I got him to be, you know, my special guest or whatever. And we done a couple of little bits and pieces here and there. And then we just said, let's just keep trying to do something. And then eventually we pulled off this Japan tour that we did together. And there's going to be more stuff we're going to do together down the line as well. But yeah, I just think he's a huge, massive talent. And he really is great. And I know that you've spoken to him on your podcast, which is a brilliant podcast to listen to. And if you know his backstory and his history and stuff like that, I think he really is an exceptional person. And he's a great guy. And I'm honoured to be able to call him my mate, and it's great that we get to do gigs and create art and do stuff together. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, but the initial time, the very first time we ever met him, and the reason we became friends was down to the Shine On Festival where we both were.
Yeah, it seems to be really big. It seems to be getting a lot of traction, that festival. It's an odd time of the year that kind of puts me off. I'm a postman, so come mid-November, we're not allowed any time off. So trying to get down that end of the country, time of year is murder. But I don't know. Maybe my mate will get me free tickets next year. Maybe that's
It's a great festival to go to, and it's, you know, it's kind of you just like, I mean, like I've just told you about meeting Jack, and it's the kind of place that you will meet people, and you kind of like opportunities come from just being there. It's mad, like, you know, and everyone's on the same vibe, and everyone's on the same buzz, and the music's good, and all that kind of thing. But yeah, it is the timing when, because it's November, I think they have it. It is November. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird time to have a festival, and yeah, it is in Minehead, which is mentally impossible to get to.
Yeah,
I've struggled to get there, and it's but if you can make the journey and you can get there, it is well worth it. Like, it's good fun.
Yeah. So before we go into your heroes, obviously you've had another 3 singles out.
Yeah.
Since Scally Folk. So is there any plans for another album?
There is, yeah. I've been in and out of the studio at the moment, and I've just put the finishing touches to an EP, just a 4-track EP. And basically, I wanted to go in and do the second album. It's all written and demoed. And the only reason I haven't actually got it done properly is because I just haven't had the time to get into the studio to do it, because I don't want to just kind of go in a day here, a day there. I want to get in as like a block booking and whack it out, but we just haven't had the time. But yeah, a second album is on the way. I'm going to start recording it properly as soon as possible. But in the meantime, I have managed to get in and do a 4-track EP, which is going to be released really, I don't know the exact date yet. We're going to get that out, but it's going to be kind of the front half of 2024 this year. But yeah, there's definitely more music to come, and there's definitely a second album to come. So kind of watch this space, and
Brilliant.
be
That
with you.
sounds amazing. I'll look forward to it. I'll try and catch it a gig up here.
Yeah, yeah.
That'd be really good. So as you know, you've listened to some of the episodes. So Time for Heroes. I asked my guests to pick 4 heroes to come for dinner. Why are they your heroes, and what would you cook them? So just fire away with who your heroes are.
Yeah, okay. So my heroes, I mean, I know kind of all mine are kind of music based because I wanted to be like kind of heroes that have influenced me in my own sort of musical journey, or people I admire. I know some people that may be like, oh, you know, me mum, me dad, and me gran, or whatever. I know
It's
that's
really
cool.
surprising. I think there's maybe like one person. I've done like 60 or 70 episodes, and I think there's like one guest has picked like a family member. I think that's about it.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Cause I thought much more people would do that. You know, being like, me gran is my hero, whatever. But anyhow, right? Yeah. Go. So the first one, I'm going to pick Joe Strummer, and we've kind of touched on that throughout this chat. He was just a huge influence on me. You know, I kind of got obsessed with him in my younger years. I always wanted to sort of like sing like him and play like him, and you know, even like dress like him and stuff like that. You know, with him being in the Clash, I love the Clash, and they were just a huge influence on me. So Joe Strummer definitely. And then who have I got? Oh yeah, the next one I was gonna pick. Now this might sound a little bit out there, but kind of run with me here. I'm gonna pick Pavarotti, Luciano Pavarotti, the famous opera singer.
Oh,
And
some
and now
chanter.
I know that now the reason I'm picking him is it was kind of around the sort of the whole COVID times, you know, lockdown and all that, and as you do, like people were just like indoors watching TV, you know, having Baileys on the cornflakes or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Not that kind of thing. And I was having one of them days, and I was just watching the TV, and I often watch stuff on Sky Arts, and basically this concert came up that was like Pavarotti in Rome or somewhere like that from like the 90s. And I didn't really know a lot about him. And I kind of put it on, being like, oh, this will be funny. We'll have a laugh at this. Do you know, kind of thinking, you know, this is going to be kind of rubbish. And I couldn't believe I've got mesmerized with it. And I watched this whole concert from like, it was like from the 90s and sometime. And just watching him, I just thought it was absolutely brilliant. What a talent. And I'd never really ever listened to like opera or that kind of style of music. Obviously, you knew a little bit. Everybody knows the famous song, you know, the Nessun Dorma.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of because it's affiliated with football that people know that one. Do you know what I mean? But I actually sat and watched this whole concert, which was like 2.5 hours long or something on Sky Arts. And I thought it was brilliant. And like I said, I don't know a whole lot about him, but I kind of loved the little bits that I knew about him. Was that, you know, he came from kind of quite a sort of humble background. He originally wanted to be a goalkeeper, like a footy player.
Right.
That didn't work out for whatever reason. I think he got injured or something, but I think he was a promising goalkeeper. That's what he wanted to do. And then to do a kind of a complete spin it on its head, you know, kind of knock the football on the head and become this world famous opera singer. I just find that story fascinating and mental. So yeah, I think he's definitely a hero just because his whole kind of career choice and his talent is just kind of
Yeah. Is
mental.
he still alive?
No, he died. I can't remember what year it was now, but I think it was probably knocking on nearly 20 years ago that he
Oh,
died.
that's it.
Yeah. But I did see one thing. I was reading it on the internet. It was something to do with, and I didn't know this. Apparently, he was when he died, he was worth millions. I'm talking like 200 odd million.
Right.
And apparently he was married twice, and he had like his ex-wife with his current wife, and apparently there was a huge big, you know, kind of court battle because they all wanted his money. Basically, the two wives wanted all his millions, but
Oh, better
but
off it, aren't you?
but I mean I never imagined in a million years that an opera singer would make that kind of money, but he did. So, you know, there we go.
Yeah.
Hats off to him.
Yeah, that's a good choice as well. I don't think we've ever had Pavarotti on the pod.
Yeah. I had a feeling that might be the case. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to have to go with that. Like, people are either going to go, oh, yeah, that's a good choice, or they're going to think I'm just nuts. But, and, you know, I think he's an interesting character. Where are we going next? Okay, yeah, thirdly, because I'm from Liverpool, I thought I've got to pick a Beatle. Now, I know that might sound, you know, like a bit of a kind of, you know, boring answer, if you like. And you probably expect me to pick John Lennon or Paul McCartney. They're probably the two obvious, but I'm not going to pick them. And I've met Paul McCartney anyway years ago in New York, funnily enough. But I'm going to pick Ringo Starr.
Do you know what? They're another first. All the Beatles picked, apart from Ringo Starr, never been picked. And I was willing you to pick him there.
Yeah. and the reason being is, like I said, I wanted to pick a Beatle because it was, you know, Liverpool. I'm a Liverpool musician, blah, blah, blah. They're obviously famous Liverpool musicians. And yeah, like the obvious choice would have been John Lennon or Paul McCartney, but I thought that was too safe. And it also comes down to, I think that Ringo would be the most fun if you got to like meet him or, you know, sit down at a dinner party or whatever, wherever it may be. I think he'd be like the most fun. And you know, he often comes across as being very mischievous and stuff like that. He always kind of has funny one-liners to say whenever you see him in interviews, past or present. And as well, I would love to kind of speak to him because I remember him as well as the voice of Thomas the Tank Engine. Do you know?
Right, yeah.
So we'd have to go down that because, you know, I remember growing up in the 80s as a kid, I would have been a fan of Thomas the Tank Engine, and then as I got older into music, then, you know, you realise, oh God, Ringo Starr, probably the most famous drummer in the world, is the voice of Thomas the Tank Engine. So like we'd have to have a conversation, and he'd have to be, you know, like I'd have to get him to be Thomas the Tank Engine. I think that'd be funny, you know, said Thomas, you know, all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
now,
so
as a stylish guy like yourself, big into your Fred Perry and all that,
yeah,
you would need to have a conversation with him as well about his choice of footwear, because I wouldn't let him through my door if he was wearing a pair of these Skechers.
yeah. I wouldn't be a fan of the Skechers. Yeah, you'd have to take them off and put something a bit more suitable on, a bit more cooler, you know. But I'm sure we can forgive him for the Skechers if he, you know, tells us some funny stories about the Beatles, and then he can all, you know, also tell us stuff about Thomas the Tank Engine. So you kind of on a win-win there, you know.
Yeah.
And then, okay, then moving on to lastly, I want to pick Dee Dee Ramone,
Right.
who obviously the bass player in the Ramones. I'm a big Ramones fan. Love them, and I think all that kind of punk stuff. I mean, this what I'm going to say now. This may kind of divide opinions to people who listen to it. Some people may agree with me. Some people may be what's he talking about. I personally feel that the Ramones invented punk. That's just my view. I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot, you know, you get obviously people talk about the Pistols and Malcolm McLaren and stuff like that, but they kind of get the sort of the limelight, if you like, spread on them. They kind of get the credit for starting punk. But I personally, I think that the Ramones were the first ever true punk band, and they invented punk. And I think the likes of the Pistols basically kind of stole it from them, the idea.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I'm a big Ramones fan, and I'd love to be, like, meet or have Dee Dee at a dinner party or whatever, because I think as well he's a great songwriter. And I think sometimes it might slightly get overlooked as well, because people do tend to sort of talk about it's well documented about, you know, like his drug addictions, the heroin and stuff like that. And I almost sometimes feel that when people talk about him, they focus on the wrong stuff in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, you know, he's known for being, well, a junkie. I don't need to say I'm not laughing at someone being a junkie, but, you know, it's just kind of. But I do genuinely think he's a brilliant songwriter, brilliant lyricist, great at melody, and he just looks really cool. And I think he'd be a really cool character to talk to. And I do love the Ramones, so he'd have to be there.
Brilliant band as well. I know that. I mean, that's three choices there that I don't think anybody's ever picked. But it's kind of, when you look at it like that, a Beatle, a Ramon, and Pavarotti, and nobody's ever picked them. It's mental. Kind of says more about everybody else than it does about yourself, mate.
Yeah, yeah. When you say it like that, a Beatle, a Ramon, Pavarotti, and Joe Strummer. That's a bit of a trip, that, isn't it, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that'd be cool anyway.
Yeah. And last question, obviously, what would you cook them?
Well, oh yeah. Well, I mean, I have to admit, I'm not much of a cook at all. In fact, I'm terrible. And I'm lucky enough that my wife is a professional chef, so like she feeds me and keeps me alive. Otherwise, I'd be probably dead.
Brilliant.
So having with that in mind, that I literally can't even boil an egg, I think I'd have to just give them all a pot noodle. To be honest with you, that's the best I could do for you. Boil the kettle, and you know, and I definitely mess that up as well. So I'd have to just boil the kettle and tell them you have to do it yourself then.
A lad's night in with the pot noodles.
Yeah, so I wouldn't actually be cooking anything. I'd just boil the kettle. That's all I could do.
Absolutely brilliant. Absolute pleasure having you on the day, Matt. You've been a really good chat.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
When the podcast goes out, I'll share all your links to your social media and all that for everybody to check out, all that, and your Spotify.
Yeah.
And as I say, hope to catch up with you at a gig over this way soon.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've got nothing lined up to be up in Scotland, but it's definitely a place that I really do want to try and do a gig up there soon. You know, I haven't really had any opportunities to come and play up there as of yet. Do you know what I mean? But I mean, you never know. Anyone who's listening to this, they might know someone. So if anybody's out there, yeah. I'm here, I'm available, I'm free. Do you know what I mean? I'd love to come to Scotland. Give me a gig.
I do have a couple of promoter pals that I'll speak to and see what they can do.
Oh, that'd be brilliant. Yeah. Because I'm always open to any kind of opportunities. And yeah, like I said, I've always enjoyed in my time with the Dead 60's in particular playing up in Scotland. So to be able to get up there and do my solo stuff would be, right up my street.
Brilliant. Pleasure having you on, mate.
Cheers, Martin. Thank you.
We'll catch up with you soon, brother.
Yeah, okay. Thanks a million. I'll speak to you soon. See you, mate. All right.
I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Time for Heroes podcast. If you would like to get in touch, the best way is on the Facebook page, Time for Heroes podcast, or on Instagram at Time for Heroes podcast, or Twitter at Time for Heroes P1, or drop me an email at timeforheroespod@gmail.com. You'll find Time for Heroes on all podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple, Google, and Amazon. Please leave a review where you can, share with others, and more importantly, enjoy.